Hey guys, it's Taco Die, and this video is about in what order you should upgrade your Titan, and essentially how to equip them as you move from T1 up to T2. We're not going to go over T3 because T3's options vary so much, but we are going to go over T1 and T2 and how to have some success from there. And once you get up to T2, you'll be educated enough that you'll know how you want to play when you get to T3. So at T1, what matters the most is speed. Okay, so all accelerators, and you'll notice that I've got all light armor. So if we do some basic stuff, you'll see that my light armor is giving me 9 kilometers an hour, including my accelerators there. So I'm at 40 kilometers an hour. If I replace this with say a medium armor, I don't get a whole lot of health, and I also lose that kilometer of speed. And then if I replace it with let's just go all the way to the top. And if I replace it with a heavy armor, I lose another 2 kilometers of speed. So I was at 40, minus the 1 because I took the light off, and then minus 2 more for the heavy, and I'm already shorter. So if you were, and it does give you a pretty significant increase in health. So if you do want to go 1 heavy and 3 light on this particular Titan, that might not be the worst idea. But always just go straight accelerators on your legs. For the system, if you're using this particular robot, you're going to want to go system hardening. If you're using something with tormentors, you're going to want to put some radar on there. And if you're using stings, you're really just going to want to put system hardening on there because you're relying on everybody else's radar. Anyway, and stings don't have long range. They only have at T1, I think maybe 360 or 380 at T3, so you don't necessarily need radar for those unless you're combating stealth robots. Okay, and then all your weapons are T1. Okay, so this is where you start out, where everything's T1. The first thing that you want to upgrade is your weapons. T3 weapons can be put on a T1 robot. Remember that. So you're constantly should be upgrading your weapons. Your weapons can be T2, T3, of course. And then as you install upgrades on them, I would get all of your weapons to T2 before you start upgrading your resources, before you start upgrading maybe your magazines or your reinforced. Okay, but get all of your weapons. And then the Javelin can actually be the last weapon that you upgrade to T2. Okay, on your robot, once all of your weapons are T2, every single one of your weapons are T2, and you have at least a couple T2 upgrades across the board, so they're pretty uniform, then if you choose to, you can T2 your robot. That would be a good time to do that. By this point, you probably have gotten a T2 option in the black market, and you're going to want to take advantage of that. Black market should be your #1 resource that you take advantage of. Any options that you see in the black market are normally, I think, a quarter of the original price, if not less, if not closer to a fifth of the original price. So you really want to take advantage of the black market, even if you know you're going to use it in the future and not right now. Once your robot is T2, the very first thing that you want to upgrade is your leg upgrades. Just make it faster. Again, upgrade these even more. So if we upgrade this robot to T2, add another first thing. You're only going to get into the jump capacitors when this particular robot is T3. You're only going to start getting into your sprint capacitors, your sprint accelerators, your sprint extenders for your other robots when it's at T2 to T3. But really, accelerators is where it's at in the beginning. And then, so now you're here, the very first thing that you're going to do before you even upgrade any more weapons is make your robot faster immediately. So that way it's faster and it can maintain at least its armor. You're going to upgrade all of these to T2. So if we improve this to T2, remember we were at 40 with our current setup here. We were at 40. Improve this to T2 and improve this to T2. Well, actually we were at 37. So now we went from 37 to 43 with that same armor setup. And oops, we're actually going to go back to that. Now let's put maybe 1 more heavy or 1 more light. We'll keep that light on there. So this is a very fast robot. This means you can get in and out, move around. You're never stuck. You may want to go heavy, heavy, light, light orange, or heavy, heavy, light, light heat resistance for this particular robot. But we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what order you should be upgrading things. So now that you've got a T2 Nelly, or a T2 robot, and you've got all your accelerators, all your leg upgrades T2, then you're going to need to come back to your weapons, and now you would start utilizing the black market. If you get a little bit of extra cash, make some of these T3, but then I'd start making sure that your weapons are fully T2. So every single one of your upgrades should be T2. So we'll just put let's see, do I have any T2 weapons? I don't think I have any T2 weapons. We'll just put a magazine on it, and we'll put a regular reinforced on it. Yeah, excellent. So then you're going to upgrade. Your weapon should already be T2 if you have a T2 robot. I would put, if I'm going to give you some extra advice, you want your manglers to have at least 2 magazines. And then you're going to want these fully T2 before you start messing with the rest of your robot. What it is because it begins to become exponential. The money that you put into this, as these all begin fully T3, the difference between a fully T1 and a fully T2 setup is exponential. It's not linear. Okay, you start, because now that you have 2 magazines, this one reinforced is even more effective, if that makes sense. It was just +2 for 125, but now it's +2 for 150 ammunition. So just by adding this magazine, you've increased the effectiveness of this reinforced. So when you upgrade this magazine and this magazine, without even upgrading this reinforced, it has an even larger effect on how effective this weapon is. And then on top of that, as you upgrade your reinforced, now it has an additional effect across that more ammunition, because each ammunition is now more powerful. So your overall magazine damage just increases for each one of these without upgrading your reinforced yet. And then once you upgrade your reinforced, it continues to be more effective. So you want all of your weapons to be fully T2 before you begin moving back into your robot. And then once you come back into your robot, you're going to want your armors. Light armors first are going to be the first thing that you upgrade before you upgrade your heavier medium armors, because not only do they increase in their armor, but it also continues to make you even faster and even faster, which, as we've talked about, is so important in the success of this game. And then after you have all of these light armors, if you have radars, you're going to want your radars to be improved, because once you do 1, 2, say you have 3 on there, that counters the effect of stealth in the game so effectively. So then you're going to want your radars done, and then after that you can pick your system hardening, or after that, actually you want your heavy armors done. And then the last thing that you want to improve, system hardening is an example. System hardening gets you the least bang for your buck as far as the money is spent. That was the very last thing I took from T2 to T3. However, EMC circuits, radar, stealth, all are worthwhile to upgrade from T1 to T2 or T2 to T3. Maybe even so more before you do your heavy armor. Okay. Now, and then after that, you'll have a fully T2 robot. And then once you have a fully T2 robot, all your T2 weapons need to move into T3. And then you'll have, once you have 3 T3, once all your weapons are T3 and all of their upgrades are T2, that's actually a really decent robot. And then you could either take advantage of a black market opportunity, or you can go ahead and manually upgrade your robot if you want to T3. T3 weapons with T2, with all T2 upgrades is actually pretty decent, and it's worthwhile to upgrade your robot to T3 at that point if you need to, because it's so expensive to upgrade each weapon upgrade to T3 that I think for the price of fully T3 and 2 weapons, you could have T3'd your robot. Or and by T3 in your robot, you get extra armor, extra leg, and extra system, and that's a worth. Even if you just put T2 in each of those slots, that's a worthwhile opportunity to take advantage of. Okay, guys, that's pretty much a general guide, and it really applies to all your robots. To lights, you want your lights super fast. If you have a Tirpitz, you want to get its accelerators, so that way it can be super fast. And then you always want to put the best weapons on your robot. No matter what, you want the best weapons on your robot, because you can put fully T3 Manglers on a T1 Nelly here if you want. You always want to take advantage of that. Okay, so. But if you're limited on funds and you're doing one robot at a time, this is the process that you want to take. At the moment, at this time, matchmaking uses the tier of your robots to match you with other players. And it's likely in the future it's still going to heavily rely on that, maybe with a little bit more balance. Know that if you choose to buy or T3 one of your robots and the remainder of your robots are T1, you're going to play against players with T3 stuff or even T2 stuff. Because at the moment, matchmaking takes the highest tier robot that you have. It weighs the most when it comes to calculating the average or the tier of your hanger. The first one's potency has the largest effect. So if you have one T3 and two T2 robots, that one T3 has the largest effect on the essentially the potency of your hanger. So know that you want to have a relatively balanced hanger. Okay, guys, if you have any more questions specific to this, or you don't agree, or you would like some further information, please let me know. Holler at me in the comments. I really hope you guys learned something and this helps you succeed, because I don't want everyone just to think that T3 is the only answer. I want you to be able to know how to get there and play as effectively as possible. Some of these setups, as for the armors, aren't set in stone. For the actual armor setups per robot, come to the Discord, ask specific, some of the folks, me and some of the other more veteran players would be glad to help you with how you set that up. But in what order to upgrade it, this is probably a pretty good guide. All right, guys, I hope you have a great time out there. I'll see you guys out there.